On October 31st, 2025, in a quiet corner of the Dosante residential area in Nagoya City, a fateful phone call shattered the somber silence. Mr. Takao Satoru, a 69-year-old man with hair touched by gray, tremblingly held the old telephone receiver. On the other end of the line, the voice of the chief of investigations rang out, each word feeling like it was piercing his heart. The DNA has finally matched. He stood frozen, his eyes glued to the family photo hanging on the wall. For this moment of truth, he had exchanged his entire youth, paid 22 million yen in rent, and spent 26 long years preserving the gruesome murder scene of his wife intact. Turning back time to the fateful Saturday afternoon of November 13th, 1999, at apartment number 302, the air seemed thickened by the metallic smell of blood. Mr. Tanaka, the landlord, brought some countryside gifts to visit Mrs. Takao Namiko to express his thanks. But responding to his call was only a chilling silence. The door was unlocked, standing slightly ajar as if inviting him in. Mr. Tanaka gently pushed the door open and stepped inside, and immediately a horrifying scene struck his eyes, causing him to collapse. Namiko lay motionless amidst a pool of spreading blood in the hallway, her breath having ceased long ago. The most heartbreaking sight was not just the body of the ill-fated woman, but the child sitting right beside her. Little Kohei, Namiko's 2-year-old son, was sitting in the middle of his mother's pool of blood. His small hands stained with blood, he innocently held a toy car, unconsciously patting his mother gently, as if wanting to wake her up to play. The laughter of a child had died out, replaced by a deadly silence enveloping the room. Mr. Tanaka trembled, taking 3 attempts to dial the number before he could call the police. 20 minutes later, sirens tore through the Nagoya sky as the investigation team rushed in to cordon off the scene. The autopsy results were quickly released, depicting the victim's final, painful moments. Namiko had died approximately 2 to 3 hours before being discovered, the cause being acute blood loss from a fatal wound to the neck and chest. The weapon was determined to be a sharp object. At the entrance to the apartment, police discovered strange shoe prints, size 24 centimeters. These were a limited edition version of women's athletic shoes from Korea, extremely rare in Japan at that time. This detail immediately became the first important clue in the hunt for the perpetrator. The crime scene still retained traces betraying the presence of the killer. Blood droplets trailed from the door to the interior, and notably in the wash basin, a small amount of blood that hadn't been fully washed away remained. Forensic analysis showed that all these blood traces belonged to blood type B, completely different from the victim's blood type A. This led to a certain hypothesis. The killer was injured during the struggle and had lingered at the scene to treat the wound before fleeing. On the dining table, police found a half-drunk bottle of fruit juice, a detail that seemed trivial but held a great secret. 3 complete fingerprints were collected from the bottle, and they did not belong to any member of the Takao family. Meanwhile, the victim's husband, Mr. Takao Satoru, received the terrible news and rushed back. The man, who was usually calm, collapsed right at the door, sobbing heart-wrenching tears. She was still normal this morning. That mutter and despair haunted everyone present at the scene. Police began reconstructing the timeline of the fateful day. That morning, Mr. Takao left the house at 8 a.m. Namiko saw her husband off and told him to come home early because their son Kohei had a slight fever. That was the last time they saw each other. At 9:30 a.m., Namiko called to book a taxi to take her son for a checkup. A delivery man rang the bell at 9:35 a.m., but received no answer, so he left a notice. Namiko's absence during this time was because she was preparing to take her child to the hospital. She was a mother who was always meticulous and thoughtful in caring for her child. Around 11 a.m., a neighbor saw Namiko carrying Kohei leaving the house to go to the Ogawa Pediatric Clinic. Here, the doctor diagnosed the baby with the flu. The clinic nurse still clearly remembered the image of the caring mother, carefully noting down every instruction in a notebook. Surveillance cameras recorded Namiko carrying her son walking back towards the apartment at 11:42 a.m. Afterward, she stopped at a grocery store to buy water and wet wipes, then bought a can of hot milk from a vending machine. All activities proceeded normally until she stepped into the door of death. The clock struck 12:15 p.m. Miss Sato, a neighbor living in apartment 302 next door, was cooking when she was startled by a loud thud, sounding like a chair falling over. Immediately after, there was a short, high-pitched scream of a woman, lasting only 1 or 2 seconds before being silenced completely. Miss Sato thought it was just children playing, so she didn't pay it any mind. But she did not know that brief moment was when the Reaper's blade snatched away the life of her gentle neighbor. This time coincided perfectly with the time of death estimated by forensics. Just minutes after the strange noise, another witness saw a woman hurriedly running down the stairs. This person was wearing a dark coat, her right hand clutching her left wrist tightly, appearing panicked. At the same time, a taxi driver just coming off his shift also encountered this mysterious woman right at the entrance to the apartment complex. He described her as being about 40 years old, with bright red blood dripping from her wrist to the ground. When he asked if she needed help, the woman remained silent and walked very fast toward the bus stop, then vanished into the crowd. From the witnesses' descriptions, the portrait of the killer began to emerge. Police tracked the traces from the scene and found droplets of type B blood scattered on the road. Specifically, the analysis of the soil sticking to the shoe soles at the scene showed it originated from a nearby park. The police's speculation was correct. The killer had passed through the park before committing the crime. In the park's public restroom, they found type B blood in the hand-washing sink, proof that the perpetrator had stopped here to wash the wound. Despite efforts to trace the suspect, in 1999, the surveillance camera system was still too sparse. The west side of the park was a maze of small alleys and bustling streets. The suspect seemed to evaporate from the world right at the intersection west of the park. A special investigation team of 50 elite officers was established, working 24/7. They began reviewing everyone closest to the victim. Mr. Takao Satoru was the first to be interrogated rigorously. However, his alibi was solid, and with neighbors confirming a happy family life, he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. The investigation focus shifted to Mr. Takao's ex-wife, who had had severe conflicts during their divorce. But on the day of the murder, she was on a business trip far away, giving her a complete alibi. Police continued to dig deep into Namiko's social relationships, from the mother's group to former colleagues. Hundreds were questioned, thousands of file pages were created, but all led to dead ends. No one had a motive for murder. No one showed suspicious signs. The case gradually fell into a deadlock, becoming a heavy rock weighing on the minds of the investigators. In 2000, a ray of hope flickered when police focused on the mysterious Korean shoes. A list of 352 people who bought this type of shoe across Japan was compiled. Police persistently verified each person. 17 buyers in Nagoya were taken care of carefully. But ironically, 12 had clear alibis, 3 had gone abroad, and the remaining 2 did not match the shoe size. Once again, the most important clue led to a dead end. The Namiko case became a typical cold case, challenging every effort of the Aichi Prefectural Police. In the autumn of 2001, Kohei, now 4 years old, suddenly uttered a strange sentence during an art class. Mom was pushed by the lady at the convenience store. Her hand was bleeding. The innocent statement of a 4-year-old about a memory from when he was 2 was dismissed. Psychologists and police at the time thought it was just confusion in a child's immature memory. No one suspected that those random words were actually the most critical key to opening the door to the truth. But it would take 24 years for people to realize their value. After his wife's tearful funeral, Mr. Takao Satoru made a crazy but tragic decision. He moved his son to live with his grandmother, but continued renting apartment 302, the murder scene. He declared, "Surely clues remain there. I cannot let them disappear." Every month, he spent 60,000 yen on rent just to keep the pain and hope intact. The empty, cold room became a place storing the soul of the case, waiting for the day justice would be served.
With the support of the police, Mr. Takao turned apartment 302 into a giant evidence preservation laboratory. Special protective film covered the shoe prints, and foil covered bloodstains in the toilet to prevent light from degrading DNA. 10 dehumidifiers ran at full capacity to maintain 50% humidity. He strictly followed the procedure, arriving on the 10th of every month to change desiccant bags, check the temperature, and gently sweep away dust. Every time he stepped into that room, it was like rubbing salt into his heart's wound with his own hands, but he never gave up. His perseverance was partially rewarded in 2002. New technology with fluorescent reagent helped police detect additional tiny bloodstains, as small as needle points, in the floor crevices that the naked eye had previously missed. This blood also belonged to Group B, reinforcing the evidence file. Besides preserving the scene, father and son Takao tirelessly handed out flyers seeking witnesses for many long years. The image of the father pushing the stroller, then holding the hand of his small child standing in the freezing winter cold, handing out each flyer, took away the tears of so many people in Nagoya.
In 2004, the fear of the 15-year statute of limitations struck. If the case wasn't solved by 2014, the perpetrator would automatically escape liability. Unwilling to accept this, Mr. Takao joined an association of victim families, starting a grueling legal battle to abolish this statute. He shuttled between Nagoya and Tokyo, collecting 80,000 signatures and attending hearings at the Diet. Finally, in April 2010, Japanese law changed, and the statute of limitations for murder was abolished. Mr. Takao hugged his son and cried, "Now we have a whole lifetime to find the truth." Years passed, and the boy, Kohei, had now grown up. At his wedding in 2024, Kohei placed his mother's photo solemnly in the waiting room, next to a jar of cherry blossom jam she loved. He wanted his mother to witness his happiness, and also to remind himself never to forget the vow to find the killer. The retirement savings of an entire lifetime had been poured into that empty room, just in exchange for a fragile ray of hope. At the end of 2024, Aichi Prefectural Police relaunched the investigation with new generation DNA analysis technology. A young female police officer named Kiriko, while reviewing old files, excavated Kohei's old words, the convenience store lady. Combined with finding convenience store uniform fibers in the soil sample from the scene, the investigation direction shifted 180 degrees. Instead of looking for Namiko's enemy, they began to ask, was the killer's real target the husband, Mr. Takao? Police turned back to Mr. Takao's past and found a shocking clue in a high school reunion yearbook from 1998. A name appeared, Anpu Kumiko. She was a former classmate who had confessed to Mr. Takao in 1985, but was rejected. At the reunion in 1998, seeing Mr. Takao happily showing off photos of his wife and child, Kumiko turned pale and left early. Digging deeper, police discovered this woman's blatant lies. She had never married, did not live in Osaka as she boasted, but was actually working at a convenience store near Mr. Takao's house. All data points began to fit together like perfect puzzle pieces. In December 1999, just 1 month after the murder, Kumiko hurriedly moved house, changed her phone number, and cut off all contact with friends. She continuously evaded police, refusing to provide DNA samples with all sorts of excuses. But the net of heaven is wide. Familial DNA search technology cornered her. Kumiko's nephew had been in an accident and left a blood sample. Police compared this genetic sample with the bloodstain at the scene and found genetic similarity up to 99.9%. The killer was definitely a female member of the Anpu family. On October 12, 2025, police knocked on Kumiko's door under the pretext of investigating her nephew's accident. The 69-year-old woman opened the door, startled for a moment but trying to remain calm. The detective sharply noticed an old white scar about 2 centimeters long on her left index finger, a mark consistent with the injury from the knife struggle years ago. When asked for a buccal swab sample, Kumiko remained silent for a long time before asking a question full of implication. Is it about the case in Nishiku 26 years ago? The DNA analysis result on October 29, 2025, was the final period to a run that lasted more than 2 decades. Kumiko's DNA sample matched the bloodstain at the scene completely. On the morning of October 31st, Kumiko went to the police station alone to surrender. She wore the same dark blue coat from 27 years ago, calmly stating, "I came to turn myself in." In the interrogation room, the veil of secrecy over the motive was finally lifted, exposing a soul distorted by jealousy and hatred. Kumiko confessed that Mr. Takao's rejection years ago had planted the seeds of hatred, and his happiness at the reunion had watered those seeds, growing them rapidly into madness. She started stalking and watching his family. Knowing Namiko often helped people, she pretended to ask for parenting advice to get close. She bought the type of milk Namiko liked in advance and deliberately wore rare shoes to mislead the investigation. That noon, she walked into apartment 302 with a knife hidden on her person. When she saw the happy family photo hanging on the wall, jealousy exploded, causing Kumiko to lose control. She rushed to attack Namiko. During the struggle, the knife cut her hand, leaving the fateful bloodstain. After committing the crime, she saw little Kohei crying, but didn't dare act against him, fleeing in panic. "For all these years, every night I dreamed of that child's eyes," Kumiko sobbed, confessing the sin that had haunted her for half her life. The case closed, and Mr. Takao stepped into apartment 302 for the first time, without needing to wear gloves or change desiccant bags. The room remained exactly as the day his wife passed away. The family photo, the unopened milk carton, the delivery notice, everything seemed frozen in time. He gently peeled off the protective film at the entrance. The 26-year-old bloodstain had turned dark black, but the 24-centimeter shoe print was still clearly visible. He whispered, "I don't want revenge. I just didn't want you to die unjustly." Mr. Takao moved closer to the window, pulling back the curtains that had been sealed tight for 26 years. Autumn sunlight flooded in, dispelling the cold and gloom of the past. Dust particles floating in the sun seemed to dance, welcoming a belated peace. He pulled out the key, gently locking the door for the last time. This time, the door closing was not to imprison pain, but to open a new chapter for his and his son's lives. The truth had been exposed. Justice had been served. The Nagoya Housewife case is not just a victory for forensic science, but also a hymn to the love and great perseverance of a human being. For more than a quarter of a century, that husband used his own life to keep a promise to his late wife. Namiko can now rest in peace, and Kohei, the child who once sat crying beside his mother's body, can now hold his head high and move on, believing that even if justice arrives late, it will definitely come to those who never give up hope.